name's Laura Balone-Daltavila from Girl Bends, and today we're joined with Rana Husseini, who is a recognized international journalist and human rights defender who brought honor killings to the forefront in Jordan in the late 90s and early 2000s as she has continued her work. So we're so happy that you joined us today. She is the author of Murder in the Name of Honor, and today we're here to discuss some questions.
Okay.
How did you become involved with your work on reporting on honor killings, and what was the reaction by Jordanians?
Well, thank you very much for interviewing me and for including me in this important project. The reason I started all the work I did and I'm doing so far is a story of a 16-year-old schoolgirl who was killed by one of her brothers. And she was, the reason was that she was raped by another brother. So the family thought that to erase the family's honor or wash the family's honor was to kill this woman, this girl. And for me, it was a shock because she was only 16. She hasn't seen anything in life, and she went through all kind of horrible experience throughout her short lifespan, such as becoming pregnant out of from her brother. He tried to kill her. She underwent a secret abortion. So she went through hell. Of course, this is not a daily occurrence in Jordan, but it happened to be that this was the case.
Yeah.
And ironically, her name is Kifaya, which means enough in English. Yeah. So I reported that story, and I started to become more exposed about more stories of such nature. And of course, I start with her story in my book because I felt it was a very important turning point in my life, actually, that story. One of the first turning points in my life. And then I went to court and I discovered that men who were killing their female relatives were also getting away with very lenient sentences, 3 months, 6 months for killing a female relative, usually in a premeditated fashion. So at that time, the press shied away from reporting about these crimes and these verdicts, and they would rarely report about them. So I wanted to be the voice of these women at that time. We're talking about an age where there's no social media. You only depended on paper. So it was really interesting times. And then in 95, I went to the prison to do a story about women who are in prison. And then I discovered that there was a group of women who are imprisoned without any charge because the state wants to protect them from their families. Usually, mostly they were victims of so-called honor killings. So these were the 3 topics that I focused on. And back then, some people were skeptical about my work, and they were telling me, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're preaching the believers," because I was writing in English. Nothing ever changes in this country. And others accused me of tarnishing Jordan's image and reputation and claimed that these things do not happen in Jordan. Even my family were like, why are we talking about this? Talk about politics. But I always felt that we were able here in this part of the world to control at least our social issues, because the politics is sort of always controlled.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting, and it's amazing that you continue despite all the backlash and everything. I wanted to ask you, what is sort of behind the concept of honor, and why does it lead to these crimes?
Basically, the concept of honor is not something new, and it's not related to our part of the world, or it's not related to any religion. Going back in history, because when I was doing this book, actually I have 2 books. When I was doing this book, I wanted to know where is the base of these crimes. Was I born and then these crimes happened? And I discovered that these crimes have been happening since the ancient civilizations, whereby for example, the Roman Empire, they used to punish women adulteress, while men would be treated like heroes. It's sort of like today. It's the same thing. And the women were considered the property of their family, and then they become the property of the husband. And then if you go through history, you will see that all religions treated honor, they had punishments for violating the honor or the women's infidelity or so forth. So basically, and then if you go through again through history, you would notice that also women were punished in the Dark Ages, for adultery and so forth.
Right. So, in your book, obviously, women are the victims of honor killings, but you also mentioned that families, and especially young men that commit these crimes, eventually there are consequences that follow. Can you kind of go into how this not only affects the women, but also the families and the men that are committing these crimes?
Indeed, that's a very important question, and I'm glad you pointed this out, because first of all, I would say 98% of the victims of so-called honor killings are women.
Right.
In Jordan and the majority of the world. In some countries also men are victims. But the most important thing, as you said, is that Some of these men or perpetrators are also victims and the families, because basically, I don't think anyone really wants to murder his wife or sister or mother
Yeah, I
or
know you
aunt.
mentioned that in the book.
Yeah, the one who he's brought up to love and protect and cherish. But unfortunately, I always say the factor of fear plays a role in how some families, not all families, we're not talking, it's certain families with certain ideologies who think that if they kill, that they will get rid of the shame, that for them the shame, that's it, we'll put it behind us.
Right.
But
Right.
first of all, they will turn a normal human being into a killer,
Mhm.
because I don't think men want to kill. It's just they put them under all this pressure. You have to kill. You have to kill your sister. She brought us shame. She's the source of shame. You have to get rid of this shame. And they put this person under pressure. And sometimes they choose individuals who are under 18 because they are treated more leniently in the law. And of course, when a family kill a female relative for reason related to family honor, it's the beginning of their problems, because people will never forget a crime, and they will never forget the reasons behind it.
Yeah. So it involves people, not just the victims, but also the families, young men.
Indeed.
That's an important
Indeed.
point. Also, in your book, you mentioned other countries where this is happening, not just in Jordan, including in Western countries, and how this simply isn't just a Muslim issue. Why should Western countries also be concerned about the issue of honor killings?
I want to say that these crimes happen in all religions, even in Jordan and in the world. These crimes happen among other religions, such as Muslims, Christians, Yazidis, Sikh. So it's not something that is restricted to one country or one nation or one religion. And I always say that we have to always address issues of femicide, let's say, or killing of women in a global manner. It doesn't serve a purpose if you come and say, oh, in Jordan they do this, in Egypt they do that, and I don't know. I think that there are not women who are living in a dangerous surrounding and they don't know it, regardless if it's honor, if it could be domestic violence, it could be anything.
Right.
There's a lot of cases, and I don't like to compare, but there's a lot of cases of whereby a woman decides to leave a man in any country in the world, and this person kills her, be it her partner, her spouse, her ex, her divorcee, So you have all these kinds of problems and life-threatening situations that women could be living in, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
So I always say it's important to focus on the issue as a whole, the issue as a universal problem, and to empower and raise women's awareness and attention regarding these matters.
No, that's very important, that it's a universal issue, not just specifically to this region or in Jordan. What laws and policies have changed, especially since the book came out in Jordan?
I want to tell you something before I answer this. The reason a lot of people think that these crimes happen in Jordan, or Jordan is like the number one in the world, but or Jordan is labeled. But of course, I don't. This is not the case. I think the issue is that because of the amount of work that was done in Jordan by the activists, by the media, by the government, even by the royal family, everyone got involved at one point in tackling this issue, and it was really covered in the media extensively, locally and abroad. So this made a lot of people think that, oh, this is a Jordanian problem. It's not a Jordanian problem. I just wanted to explain this. I don't know if it was one of your questions.
No, but it's important
Yeah.
because it's not just Jordan, but it's the one that's been publicized a lot because there's
And actually, our activism work encouraged other countries in the region to follow suit and to talk about this issue. And even the drama work, I'm not saying it's all from Jordan, but I mean,
it's been a leading
yeah.
country in it.
Indeed. Now, in terms of what changed regarding the laws you're asking,
Yes.
when I started, some laws used to offer leniency or reduction in penalty, let's say, for individuals who kill their female relatives in the name of family honor. We worked very, very hard as individuals, activists, lawyers, civil society, women's groups, everyone, to demand a change for these laws. It took us around. I would say around 20 years to see a change in the.
But it's also a significant change, so it takes time.
Exactly, but it took us 10 years for the justice system to start treating these matters differently. So first, it started with the justice system and the way they used to interrogate these, interrogate the suspects or investigate these murders. In the past, it used to be a solved case for them. A man comes to the police station, hey, here's the gun, I killed my sister. That's it. Or here's a knife, or oh, okay, sit down, good, here's coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
Now this is not the case anymore. And then they take his statement, usually his statement, and they don't bother to investigate further if there's other motives. So usually it's the word of a killer against that person.
Right.
After that, we said no. We wish that no woman would be killed. But if a woman is killed, then we want justice for her after her death.
Yes.
So the thing is that the justice system started to become more thorough in terms of investigating these murders, bringing evidence to the table, to the court. And this made a difference, actually. And the court started slowly to change its verdicts. Not all of them, but it started to treat these murders as regular homicides or regular murders. Of course, we wish that no one would be killed, but at least, now such murders are being treated as regular murders. And this was one of our main demands.
Great. So, despite the laws changing, does this continue to be a prevalent issue in Jordan? And how, in your opinion, what needs to change going forward?
I think that not only the laws changed, as I said, there's a change in attitudes towards from the judiciary. Another important thing is the change from the people themselves, the attitudes. I've been lecturing about this issue all over Jordan and the world for since I started. And I see a shift in the people's attitudes. I'm talking about Jordan now, and the fact that many people are rejecting these crimes. More men are joining the fight. Even on social media, you see there is more people leaning towards rejecting these murders, calling for better services. In 2018, the government opened a shelter for these women who used to be in prison, to actually put them in this shelter as a temporary solution, and to make them feel that they are living in a house, not in a prison.
Right.
So these are all important changes, and also the fact that we forced the government to admit there's a problem. In the past, the government would say it's not a problem, you're making a big deal, blah, 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 it's nothing major. Like 10 years ago, the government started to acknowledge there's a problem, and when a government acknowledges there's a problem, then it becomes their responsibility to ensure the safety and security of the citizens. And that's why the laws changed, the house was opened. They keep training judges, criminal prosecutors, anyone working with the domestic field. And they opened the family protection department 15 almost years ago. Also, these are all actions taken by the government that really helped. Also, the civil society did its share. There's also hotlines for some women's groups. They have temporary shelters, some organizations. So that's why this book was basically talking about a successful story of a country named Jordan. I did put other countries, but I wanted to show in the book that people's will made a difference. And of course there was other will, but at least we did something and it worked, it materialized. It took time, unfortunately, it took lives. But I think now the number of cases has dropped. I'm not saying it stopped. I don't think crime will stop, unfortunately. But at least in the past, I would say I used to cover between 25 to 30 reported cases annually. Now I would say it's around 10 to 15. So there is a drop, and there's an increase in awareness. There's among the public, among the prosecution, among the justice system, and these are all important changes.
Yeah, no, it's very important. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and excited to see where it continues to go. And make sure to check out Rana's book, Murder in the Name of Honor. Thank you so much for joining